There's one city in Italy that almost everyone knows, but usually for just one romantic and tragic story about two star-crossed lovers. But today, we're spending a full day in Verona to see if there's actually more to the city than just Romeo and Juliet. We've got Roman ruins and arenas, medieval castles, insane viewpoints, and a few surprises we definitely didn't expect along the way. Let's get tipsy, y'all. We're using the Verona card for today, specifically the 24-hour pass. It gives you access to a bunch of the main sites around the city. It also includes public transportation, which can be helpful getting in and out of the center. For us, since we're trying to hit a few of the bigger paid attractions in one day, it ends up making sense. Made it to Verona. It's going to be a bit of a wet day today. We're kicking off the day in Verona at one of the most recognizable landmarks in the entire city, the Arena di Verona. And at first glance, it kind of feels like a mini Colosseum dropped right into the middle of a northern Italian piazza. But here's the thing, this isn't a replica and it's not trying to be Rome. The Arena di Verona was built in the 1st century AD with construction both starting and completing before the Roman Colosseum broke ground. That means this thing has been standing here for nearly 2,000 years. And unlike a lot of the ancient structures you see around Italy, this one is still very much alive. Back in the Roman times, this was used for gladiator games, public spectacles, and basically anything that could draw a crowd. And we're not talking small crowds either. The arena could hold around 30,000 people at its peak, which is bigger than most basketball arenas.
Fast forward to today, it still pulls in huge audiences just for a slightly different reason. So instead of gladiators duking it out, you've got operas and concerts belting it out. Every summer, the arena turns into one of the most famous open-air opera venues in the entire world. We're talking full productions, massive sets, thousands of people, all inside a Roman amphitheater under the night sky. It even hosted the recent closing ceremonies of the Winter Olympics, so this place definitely knows how to put on a show. And even if you're not into opera or the various concerts, it's kind of wild to think that people have been gathering in this exact spot for some form of entertainment for almost 2,000 years. And one of the coolest things about it is how well it's held up. While much of the outer ring was damaged in an earthquake back in the 1100s, the structure you see today is still incredibly intact, especially on the inside. You can walk through it, sit on the stone steps, and get a feel for just how massive it really is. This is one of the best preserved Roman amphitheaters in the world, and one of the few that's still being used for large-scale performances today.
So an important thing to note is that they are getting ready for the opera season this summer. And while we are here in April, most of it is closed. So had this not been part of the Verona card that we had paid for, I don't know if I want to visit the arena while they're getting set up, because you do lose a lot of the access because of the opera series in the summer. Just keep that in mind if you're coming, that during setup and potentially even during the opera season, it will be limited access for this arena. Piazza Bra is the largest square in Verona, and it sits right in front of the Arena di Verona. The name Bra actually comes from the German word breit, meaning wide or broad, which makes sense for what this is, as compared to some of the tighter streets and smaller piazzas around the city. This place feels much more open. And historically, this area has always been kind of a gathering place. Back in the Roman times, this area actually sat outside the city walls and was basically just open space next to the arena, used to handle the crowds coming in for events. Over time, especially in the Middle Ages, the city expanded, and this space was brought inside the walls, turning into a market area for things like livestock and goods. It didn't really become the piazza we recognize today until the 18th century, when this large promenade area was paved and it became a true gathering place for the city. During the Christmas season, this square completely transforms and is filled with festive stalls, which was a completely different vibe than what we're seeing today.
Castelvecchio was built in the 1300s by the ruling family of Verona, the delle family, and basically turned the city into a fortified stronghold. This place was designed as a defensive fortress, complete with thick walls, towers, and its own escape route.
Right behind the castle is the Ponte, a fortified bridge that stretches across the river. And the whole idea was pretty simple. If things went south, the ruling family could escape the city fast. Both the castle and the bridge were damaged during World War II, and then later rebuilt using original materials to match the original design as close as possible. And today, instead of a fortress, Castelvecchio has been turned into one of the main museums in Verona. You're walking through stone hallways, open courtyards, even sections that lead out towards the bridge. And then right in the middle of all of that, you've got art, sculptures, and artifacts from different periods in the city's history. And it's not just one type of museum either. It's the kind that jumps from medieval weapons and armor to Renaissance artwork as you move through it. When they redesigned it, they kept a lot of the original structure exposed, so instead of separating the museum from the building, they kind of blended the two together. The fact that this museum is also a castle is what makes this spot stand out for us.
We've decided that instead of trudging through the rain, because we are absolutely stoked, we're gonna go find some wine. So that's the plan. We're gonna go find some wine, give it a chance to stop, and hope it gets better.
We got there by walking down Via Mazzini, Verona's main shopping street that links Piazza Bra with Piazza delle Erbe. This street also goes back to the Roman times when Verona was on a major Roman highway built in 148 BC. That highway ran across northern Italy from Genoa to the northeast, carrying soldiers, goods, and travelers throughout the Roman Empire. While this street wasn't the highway itself, it follows part of the Roman street grid that grew around it. Antica Bottega del Vino has been serving drinks for over 500 years. It first opened as a tavern in the 1500s, back when the Republic of Venice ruled the area. Travelers, merchants, and anyone passing through the city were welcome here. Over the years, the bar changed names and owners, always adapting to what was happening in Verona. In the late 1800s, it became a favorite spot for artists, writers, and intellectuals. The interior you see today still shows signs of that time. More recently, local wine producers took over to keep the bar's connection to the region's wine culture strong. But this isn't just a wine bar, it's one of the most famous wine spots in the world, known far beyond Verona. The bar has around 15,000 bottles and somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 different labels. Be sure to give yourself time to look through that wine list, which is over 150 pages long. You can come in for a full meal with traditional dishes or just enjoy a few glasses of wine and a few small bites before heading out.
That was awesome. 2 glasses of wine, and we each got 3 cicchettis. We sat right at the bar. You could see them making all the fresh ones. Highly recommend that stop.
This is Casa di Giulietta, also known as Juliet's house, and it's probably one of the most famous spots in Verona. For context, yes, we are referring to Juliet from Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet play that was set here in Verona, Italy. But before you get too caught up in the romance, there's something you should know. There's actually no proof that William Shakespeare ever came to Verona, and Romeo and Juliet, they weren't real people. What you're looking at here is less of a historic home and more of a really well-done story that the city of Verona has leaned into. But let's look at the history of how this spot came to be. First, the house itself is medieval, but the balcony everyone knows today was added during the 20th century restoration, which is a big part of how this became one of the most famous stops. So why Verona, you ask? Well, Shakespeare didn't just make this up out of nowhere. The iconic love story actually came from older Italian tales that were already set in Verona. So he basically borrowed the plot, kept the location, and turned it into the romantic and tragic version we all know today. And those famous families, the Montagues and Capulets, many historians believe they were likely inspired by real Veronese families, just without the whole tragic love story part. So it ends up being a mix of real history, borrowed stories, and a little bit of marketing and tourism magic. Inside Casa di Giulietta, there's a small museum spread across a few rooms and floors with period-style furnitures, costumes, and displays inspired by the story of Juliet. It's not huge, and it's definitely more about the theme and atmosphere than deep history, but it gives a little more context in the whole experience. Now, the balcony everyone wants to see, you can only access it from inside the house, which requires a separate ticket. Juliet's house. I don't know, guys.
Unless you're a big literature buff and love Shakespeare, I don't know that I would spend the time and money to do that. It was included in the Verona card, as we said, so that was kind of why we did it. Easy enough to book a time slot, and we went through it in about 15 minutes. So it is a quick stop. If you want to see it, take the photo, but I don't know if it's worth a stop on its own.
Yeah, and if you're going to wait to take a picture with the statue that was outside in the courtyard, or if you're going to wait to take a picture on the balcony, I would add probably another 20 minutes per photo. I mean, the house was cool. I thought the house was really neat. Yeah. All right, let's go see if we can get a view now that it has finally stopped raining.
The Torre dei Lamberti dates back to the 1100s and was originally built by the Lamberti family, who were one of the most powerful families in the city at the time. It was expanded over the years, eventually reaching about 84 meters tall, which made it one of the tallest structures in Verona, and a title it still claims today. It was used as a watchtower and also had bells that played a pretty important role in the daily life. One bell was used to signal things like fires or emergencies, and the other was basically the get-to-work bell for the entire city. These days, you can either climb the 368 stairs to the top or take an elevator most of the way up.
368, let's do it. Chris said, I think we should climb. And I said, does that mean I get gelato? He said yes. So here we go.
From the top, you can see Piazza delle Erbe below, the rooftop stretching out across the city, and the Adige River cutting through everything, which really gives you a much better sense of how compact and walkable Verona really is.
Piazza delle Erbe has actually been the center of the city since Roman times, originally used as the main forum where everything happened. It was basically the heartbeat of Verona, where politics, trade, and daily life converged. And not much has changed as today. It's still a market square with stalls selling everything from souvenirs to local products, and it's surrounded by these insanely colorful buildings and frescoes that date back centuries. Right in the middle, you've got the Madonna Verona fountain, which has been here since the 1300s, and then towering over everything is the Torre dei Lamberti. Chris kept his word, and we grabbed a quick gelato on our way to explore the next spot.
The Duomo di Verona is the main cathedral in the city. The church you see today was built in the 1100s after an earlier version was destroyed in that same earthquake that damaged the arena. It's a mix of Romanesque, Gothic, and later additions layered over time, which is pretty common when a building has been around for this many centuries. From the outside, it's a little more understated compared to some of the big cathedrals you might see elsewhere in Italy. And once you step inside, it actually reminded us a lot of the Basilica di San Petronio back in Bologna. You don't get that super ornate, fully painted ceiling like a lot of churches in Italy. Instead, it's a lot more neutral with more stone and natural tones. One of the biggest highlights is a painting by Titian, one of the most famous artists of the Renaissance. It's called The Assumption of the Virgin, and it's kind of a big deal to have a work like that sitting inside a cathedral like this.
The Duomo is actually part of a much bigger complex that includes the cathedral. Around it, you've got cloisters, chapels, and additional churches that were added over time. Beneath the floor, there are even older ruins from earlier churches, so this site has been built on over the centuries. Ponte Pietra dates back to around 100 BC, making it the oldest bridge in Verona. And like a lot of things here, what you see today has been through a lot. It was heavily damaged during World War II and then carefully rebuilt using as many of the original stones as possible. So even though it looks ancient, it's kind of a mix of original and restored history.
The Teatro Romano is, you guessed it, a Roman theater that dates way back to the 1st century BC, making it even older than the arena. And unlike the arena, which was built for massive crowds and spectacle, this place was designed for more intimate performances like plays and music, and was built right into the hillside. And you can still see how it follows the natural slope, with the seating rising up the hill and the stage area down below. At its peak, it could hold around 3,000 spectators. And while most of what you see today is ruins, the site is still used in a limited way, hosting a few events during the summer.
So the theater was pretty compact, obviously, but the museum is huge, and the view from up here is incredible. Honestly, like I was just telling Chris, I don't even know if you need to go all the way up to the castle, because this view, I mean, wow.
Our final stop of the day was a ride on the funicular up to the Castel San Pietro viewpoint. The ride takes just a minute, though we waited much longer in line. Still, it's an easy way to see Verona from above.
Probably an unpopular opinion, do not do the funicular. That was low-key miserable. It would have taken us maybe 8 or 9 minutes to walk up here, but that was just not worth it in my opinion.
Also, the view from the Roman theater is just as good, I think, there, and much less crowded.
At the top, the viewpoint sits above the historic city center, offering a view of the river and all the places we explored earlier in the day. Despite its name, this isn't the kind of medieval castle you might imagine. The structure you see today was actually built in the 1800s during the Austrian rule, but the location itself has been important for much longer. This hill has been used since the ancient Roman times as a strategic lookout point, which makes sense because from up here, you can see practically everything. And that wraps up our time in Verona. We had some surprisingly nice weather and also some horrible weather too. But all in all, the city was an absolutely perfect day trip for us from Bologna. If you enjoyed this, we have a whole guide for other day trips that you can take. Thanks so much for watching. Cheers, y'all.